Hi everybody, so today we are going to do 100 interesting facts about Scotland. And I'm just going to dive straight in with our first fact. I feel like this is perhaps a little bit better known now, but for a while I thought it was really an interesting fact that nobody seemed to know, or maybe it was just really lesser known. So number one, the national animal of Scotland is, do you know it? I'll give you a hint. It's a mythical animal. So it's not a real animal. Do you know it? The national animal of Scotland is a unicorn. So, fact number two, the capital city. I feel like this is another one that people probably do know. The capital city of Scotland is Edinburgh. But did you know, fact number three, the largest city in Scotland is actually Glasgow. Edinburgh is the capital city, but Glasgow is the largest city. Fact number four. Scotland is home to the tallest waterfall in Great Britain, named. Now, I'm finding this very difficult to pronounce. I've never heard this fact before. It's in Gaelic, or Gaelic. Gaelic is the Scottish one, Gaelic is the Irish, although they're essentially the same language. So, according to YouTube, it's S. Acol Aluin. I will pop the spelling of the waterfall in the video for you now. Scotland is home to the tallest waterfall, and it is 658 feet, which is 3 times the height of Niagara Falls. I think it's very, very small, though it's not humongous. Also, Horseshoe Falls. Sorry, not Niagara Falls. Have to stick to the original Canadian name. Alright, so fact number 5. Scotland is home to the oldest tree in Europe, which is one of the oldest living organisms in the world. It is a twisted yew that has been around for over 3,000 years. Fact number 6. I'm already losing numbers. So the raincoat was invented in Scotland by a man named Charles Mackintosh. Not to be confused with the designer Charles Rennie Mackintosh. Charles Mackintosh invented the raincoat, which is why it's called a Mac. Also named before Apple called things Mac. Fact number 7, I think. The small Scots town of Bonnybridge has become the UFO capital of the world. The town has more than 300 sightings of UFOs every year. I love that. I believe in UFOs. I have seen 2 UFOs in my lifetime. None of them at Bonnybridge, but both in Scotland, I'm pretty sure. one definitely in Scotland. I think it was in, I want to say it was in the Aberdeen area. I don't remember. Fact number 8. Scotland is home to the world's shortest commercial flight in the world. The journey is from Westray to Papawestray in Orkney, and the distance is only 1.5 miles and takes just 47 seconds. The tickets are quite expensive too. Why would you take a flight for 1.5 miles? I think Papawestray is actually on a different island. I think they're both on separate islands, because Orkney is kind of like a little group of islands up in the north. Fact number 9. It was a Scottishman, or a Scotsman, Scotsman, who invented the telephone. That was Alexander Graham Bell. And he invented that in February 1876. Fact number 10. It was also a Scotsman that created the first TV, and that was John Logie Baird in October 1925. Number 11 is that the supposed Indian dish, the world famous, apparently, chicken tikka masala, was actually invented by a Pakistani chef in Glasgow in 1971. So I've actually been to this place. I didn't get the chicken tikka masala. I think I've been there twice after concerts, because it's actually quite handy after you go to the SEC in Glasgow, although it's not called the SEC, it's the SEC SSE Hydro now. So yeah, I've been to that one. They're very good. I don't think it's the same owner. 1971. Could be the same family. I think it's the same family. Number 12. Scotland has a population of about 5.3 million people. Interestingly, there are more people with Scottish heritage living in the US than there are in Scotland. The number of Americans of Scottish descent today is estimated to be 20 to 25 million. Fact number 13. Scotland has the highest proportion of redheads in the world. So I want to say the average worldwide is like 6% of the population. Like 6% of the population of the world are natural redheads, or if you're from Scotland, gingers, gingers. But it's 13% of the population of Scotland are redheads / gingers. Number 14. Golf was invented in Scotland in the 15th century. The sport was apparently first played on the east coast of Scotland using pebbles and sticks. Scotland's most famous golf club, St Andrews, is actually on the east coast, and it became one of the world's first golf courses, founded in 1754. So, 15th century, which was the 1400s, and then took 300 years to build the first golf course. Number 15. Scotland officially has 3 different languages. English, of course, Scottish Gaelic, and Scots. Scottish Gaelic is an ancient Celtic language that evolved from Old Irish, and Scots is a Germanic language that's similar to English but considered a different language. If you've watched my Doric video, Doric and Scots are not the same, but a lot of people consider Doric to be Scots. Fact number 16. The first recorded sighting of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, was in 565 AD or CE, which is current era, whereas AD is Anno Domini. That's a random fact that I've remembered. So there's a bonus non-Scottish fact for you. Fact number 17, and I am learning a lot today. I hope you are too. The world's first colour photograph was taken in Scotland, and it was of a tartan ribbon. Number 18. The bagpipes, which are possibly one of the things that people associate with Scotland, were actually invented in ancient Egypt. It was thought that the Romans first brought the bagpipes to Scotland, and then we took it as our own. Number 19. Scotland has its own version of Stonehenge, the Callanish stones. They are on the Isle of Lewis. It is a ring of stones, just like Stonehenge. And it's thought they date back to 3000 BCE. And just like Stonehenge, no one knows how or why the stones were erected. Number 20. Scotland has 790 islands. Only around a quarter of these are actually inhabited. Some of these most popular islands to visit are the Isle of Arran, the Isle of Harris, and the Isle of Skye. I also have to add the Isle of Mull on there as well. There are a whole lot more than that though, which is why you need to visit Scotland. Number 21. Edinburgh is considered one of the most haunted places in the world, with Edinburgh Castle right at the centre. Lots of people have heard the beat of the headless drummer down in the dungeons. Number 22. Edinburgh has got more listed buildings than anywhere else in the world. Number 23. Edinburgh Castle was first built on Castle Rock late in the 11th century. This one's actually in a place the name is familiar, probably because because it's a strange one. The world's tallest hedge can be found in Scotland. At over 1,700 feet in length and 100 feet high, this hedge is located near Mickleower. Told you it was a fun name. Number 25. I'm losing the numbers. At Edinburgh Zoo, there's a penguin called Sir Niels Olaf, who's a brigadier and has a knighthood. "24. The first, 26. To be fair, if I get mixed up with the numbers, it's only beneficial to you. You get more than you bargained for. In a good way. The first ever International Association football game was played in Scotland and was between Scotland and England in 1872. So not quite international, but for the sport, I suppose it was. It was played at the West of Scotland Cricket Ground in Partick. It ended at a 0-0 draw. 27. The famous Highland Games, where people participate in caber tossing, as well as many, many, many other activities, dates all the way back to the 11th century. So while Edinburgh Castle was being built an entire millennia ago, that's when people first started tossing cabers, or at least first started the Highland Games. That's crazy. 28. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which occurs for 4 weeks in August, is one of the largest performing arts festivals in the world. The festival attracts over 400,000 people from all over the world every year. Maybe not recently, but yes. 29. Edinburgh was the first city in the world to have a fire department. They were all volunteers at the time, and apparently weren't the quickest at responding to danger. Number 30. On the Orkney Islands, there is a place called Skara Brae, which is known as Scottish Pompeii because it is an entire medieval city and it has great preservation. It is preserved very well. The other jewel from the medieval world is the Knap of Howard, which is the oldest preserved stone house in Northern Europe. From the picture, though, it seems as though there's no roof. The Bank of Scotland, set up in 1695, is one of the oldest banks in Britain. The other two are the Barclays and the Bank of England. Aberdeen Harbour Board, 33. Aberdeen Harbour Board, founded in 1136, is Britain's oldest running business. Okay, so I found all my facts on the internet. This is on a site called the Fact File, and it says nestled in Scotland's western shore. It's actually the northeast of Scotland. I should know. Nestled in Scotland's northeast, it has seen all major world events pass by in its 900, nearly 1,000 year actually, history. So Aberdeen is named, 34. Aberdeen is nicknamed the Granite City because of the huge amounts of granite that are found there. Most of Union Street, which is the main street in Aberdeen, is very, very grey. The Granite City, so it makes it sound so much nicer. It is basically an entire grey city centre because everything is made of granite. 35. There are more than 30 places around the world named Aberdeen, such as in Hong Kong, Canada, Australia, South Africa, the United States. I know there's an Aberdeen in Washington, but I guess this is 36. Aberdeen is actually named for the two rivers in the original Scottish Aberdeen. And I think I've said this in one of my Doric videos, but it's named after the Dee and the Don. And we did one of those old school mashups. And I think Aber is like mouth of the river. I'm pretty sure I looked it up before and that's what it says. So it's like mouth of the rivers Dee and Don. The Encyclopedia Britannica originated in Scotland. It was the idea of an Edinburgh bookseller. 37. It was the idea of an Edinburgh bookseller, Colin McFacher, which is a very funny name. If you're not Scottish, you'll see it and wonder how on earth to pronounce it. During the 17th century, Greenock was just a small fishing village with rows of thatched houses along the shore. Their first harbour was completed in 1710 and has been improved many times since. The French used this as their naval base during World War II, and to this day you can see the giant granite cross that was built as a memorial for the French sailors who lost their lives. 39. Scotland was an independent country up until the 15th century. The country merged to form the Great Britain when the King of Scotland was given the throne of England in 1603, and if I'm not mistaken, that was King James I of England. I went down a YouTube rabbit hole and followed. There was a video of who would be the King of Scotland if we still had our own king, and it sort of diverged there because, as I said, the King of Scotland went to England and became, I'm pretty sure, King James I, but he was like King James VI of Scotland. I will look this up and put it on the video. Number 40. The Teviot Row House is a historic building inside Edinburgh University. It is the oldest students' union building in the world. 42. The oldest golf championship, the Open Championship, was first played in 1860 at Prestwick Golf Club in Scotland. 43. The author of Sherlock Holmes, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was Scottish. 44. one of the seven wonders of the industrial world, the Bell Rock Lighthouse is located in Scotland. The national dish of Scotland is haggis, or also haggis, neeps, and tatties. Neeps being turnips and tatties being potatoes. Haggis is made with the heart, liver, and lungs of a sheep and then boiled in a sheep's stomach. And it's very delicious. It sounds really gross when you put it like that. For day 6, the 30th of November is the National Day of Scotland, St. Andrew's Day. 47, most people don't actually celebrate St. Andrew's Day. We have our very, very Scottish day on the 25th of January, which is Robert Burns Day. And Robert Burns is one of the world's, I may be biased because I'm Scottish, but he is one of the world's most famous poets. And on Robert Burns Day, we usually have Burns Supper, which is our haggis, neeps, and ties. And we usually it's held like a sort of feast, a grand feast event, or it can kind of be also like Thanksgiving in a way, where you have the person of like honor cutting the haggis instead of a turkey, and the person usually recites to a haggis, which is by Robert Burns. Number 47, I think. Scottish breakfast is different to a traditional English breakfast. So it usually includes some of your regulars like bacon and sausage and toast and things like that. But we also include Scottish black pudding, Lorne sausage, which is a square steak sausage, whereas most sausages are pork, baked beans, tatty scones, which is potato scones. They're not like scones that you would have with jam and cream. They're more like a bread or something. They're very good, especially with a poached egg on top. And usually with your Scottish breakfast, you'll have a cup of tea or coffee, but usually a tea. "48. The first successfully cloned life form happened in a lab in the University of Edinburgh. And the life form was Dolly the sheep. 48. Sir Alexander Fleming, who discovered penicillin, was born in Scotland. The discovery of penicillin also earned him the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 1945. James Goodfellow was the person who invented the first chip and pin system in Paisley in the year 1966. He also went on to invent the ATM. Number 50. The remains of Saint Valentine are at Glasgow's Blessed St. John Duns Scotus. Very interesting. So back to our fact about our penguin, Sir Niles Olaf. His duties were inspecting the Norwegian Guard when they visit. And he was knighted, as I mentioned, but he was knighted in 2008 and has since been promoted to brigadier, which is so cute. 51. Edinburgh Castle was actually built on top of a 700 million year old volcano, which is extinct. At 1 p.m., it's supposed to be 52. 52. At Edinburgh Castle, at 1 p.m., they fire a cannon, and it is called the 1 o'clock gunfire. And they do this every day except Sundays. Number 53. 53. There are around 300 castles in Scotland, and given Scotland's size, it's about one castle for every 100 square miles. I think in like the 30 miles around me, there are probably about 4 or 5 castles. One that I could easily walk to, in fact. 54. Glamis Castle in Scotland is where the Queen Mother grew up. When she lived there, she was known as Elizabeth Bowes Lyon. The castle is situated in Angus and happens to be where the oldest family name in Scotland, Ogilvy, originates. So I suppose that's 2 facts in one. The different clans, 55, the different clans are recognised by the patterns of their kilts. Fifty. 56. Sir James Clerk Maxwell, founder of modern electromagnetism, was born in Scotland. Back to our red hair. At least 40%, myself included, of Scots have the red hair gene in their DNA. Scientists believe it's due to the lack of sunshine. I think that's actually amazing. 47. 57. All these numbers are confusing me. Glasgow was once the music capital of the world, and the Britannia Panopticon, that's really difficult to say. Britannia Panopticon. It's fun though. Britannia Panopticon is the oldest surviving music hall in the world. 58. The ultrasound machine was first used in Glasgow hospitals during the 1950s. 58. Edinburgh is sometimes referred to as the Athens of the North. I had this in a quiz once, and I was like, well, it's anywhere but Edinburgh, because I've never heard of it. And then it was Edinburgh. Edinburgh is a city built on 7 hills. 59, I think. Edinburgh is a city built on 7 hills. The other cities in this 7 hill club are Rome, Moscow, and Madrid. Sixth day. Though the population of Edinburgh is about 500,000, 13 plus million tourists visit the city every year. This means 26 tourists for every local. That's wild. 62. The reason for so many castles in Scotland is because each clan had a leader, and each clan leader lived in a castle. Number 62. This thistle plant is the national flower of Scotland. And to follow this up with a very interesting myth or folklore about the thistle is that a sleeping party of Scots warriors were saved from ambush by an invading Norse army because, and things, accounts differ, of course, over the years, was that the Norse were trying to sneak up on the Scots while they were asleep, perhaps I've heard that they took off their shoes or their boots to be quiet. And then one of the Vikings stood on a thistle. He cried out in pain, which aroused the Scots and vanquished the invaders. And that's when we took on the thistle as our national flower. It's a pretty cool one. I don't know how we got the national animal of a unicorn, not by one, spearing our enemies through the stomach or anything, but that's how we got our national flower. '63, I think. New Year's Eve is not called New Year's Eve in Scotland. It's called Hogmanay, and it is one of the biggest celebrations that Scotland has in the year. There are many celebrations across Scotland, from the fireworks in Edinburgh to the fireballs in Stonehaven, to the flambeau in Comrie, which is in Perthshire. Near Comrie is actually the hometown of Gerard Butler, the Scottish actor. And they do the flambeau, which is people carry around tall lit torches, carry them around town, and then they used to throw the torches into the river, but because of environmental effects they don't do that anymore. But yeah, that was another interesting Hogmanay event. 64. The national drink of Scotland is, of course, whiskey. It does not have an E in it, and it is certainly not called Scotch. It's whiskey. Whiskey, 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 whiskey. And it translates from Gaelic into water of life. Scotland is the second largest country in the UK after England. The UK comprises of 4 countries, so Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, and Wales. Back to our oldest tree in Europe is in Fortingal. Fortingal. I'm not entirely sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it sounds like I'm saying Fortingal. It's Fortingal. Spelling on the screen. Uh, 60, 65. I'm losing it with my numbers, honestly. Scotland has the oldest working post office in the world. At, I don't know how to say this, St. Croix, and it was established in 1712. 66, I think. Rugby fans. 66. The world's first international rugby match was played in Scotland. 67. Ben Nevis is the highest mountain in the region. 68. I don't know whether I find this reassuring or terrifying, but as of 2014, the average lifespan for a Scot is 76.8 years. The total area is 30,981 square miles, of which 97% is land and 3% is water. The coastline of Scotland is 7,330 miles. 71. The border between Scotland and England is 96 miles long. The most northerly point on Britain's mainland is Dunnet Head, which is actually 14 miles west of John O'Groats. Scotland's geology is one of the oldest in the world, and the rocks in the northwest of Scotland are actually 3 billion. That's Billion. 3 billion years old. At that time, the land mass that would eventually become Scotland was actually located at the South Pole. Now, if you don't know, all of the continents in the world used to be part of a supercontinent called Pangaea. And that's about all I can tell you about that. So 74. I spoke to you earlier about Ben Nevis being the highest mountain in Scotland. So it is 4,413 feet. But the more incredible part is that the mountain of Ben Nevis was actually originally part of a ginormous, immense volcano, and Ben Nevis is what remains of the inner dome of the volcano. That is really cool. Over 30,000 freshwater lochs in Scotland. Although a small loch is actually called a lochan. Of these 30,000 bodies of water, which is lochs and lochans, the 5 largest, which are Loch Ness, Loch Shiel, Loch Marar, Loch Awe, and Loch Lomond, contain 1/3 of the total water volume. just 5 contain 1/3. That's cool. I'm learning so much about Scotland, I swear. So, 76, the most famous loch in Scotland is, of course, Loch Ness. And there is approximately 263 billion cubic feet of water in Loch Ness, which means it holds more fresh water than all of the lakes of England and Wales combined. 77 for Loch Ness. Most of the lochs in Scotland, actually all other lochs, I'm not entirely sure about lochans, most other lochs in Scotland are shaped like a bowl. So it's convex, meaning it just rounds at the bottom, most lochs. Loch Ness, however, is concave. So concave is like an hourglass shape. So it goes in and then out, meaning that there is space again at the bottom, sort of ironically little caves, considering concave. There are little spaces around the bottom that the Loch Ness Monster could easily hide in. Do I believe in the Loch Ness Monster? Yes, I do. And 78, Loch Ness. Very much love Loch Ness. Never freezes. Due to the water, which is thick with black peat, it retains a lot of heat from the sun, and average temperatures never veer far from 5 degrees, no matter if it's the middle of summer or the depths of winter. I like that phrase, the depths of winter. 29. Glasgow means green glen in Gaelic, but ironically, it does not have the most public parks in Scotland. That honour goes to Edinburgh. Glasgow has 90 public parks, and Edinburgh has 112. 79. Edinburgh was not always the capital of Scotland. Until the union of the Scottish and English crowns in 1603, the official royal palace was Stirling Castle, which is located close to two of the most important battle sites in Scottish history, Bannockburn and Stirling Bridge. 80. Just like Edinburgh Castle, Stirling Castle was built on top of a rocky outcrop which is actually a volcanic plug. The 250-foot Castle Hill offers panoramic views around the relatively flat surrounding landscape. It is very flat around Stirling Castle. I've never been to it, but I've been past it a lot. Which possibly explains why the earliest recorded attempted flight by a human took place at Stirling Castle in 1507. Whoa. That's nuts. That's a whole fact on its own. What's that? 80. The world's oldest football was found in Stirling Castle, hidden behind an oak panel. It has been dated back to the early 1500s. Glasgow has the only underground subway in Scotland, and it was opened in 1896, making it the third oldest underground railway in the world. 82. The University of Glasgow is the fourth oldest university in the world. It was founded in 1451, and past students include the economist Adam Smith and engineer Lord Kelvin. The most remote island in Scotland is Hirta in the St Kilda archipelago, which lies 40 miles west of North Uist. North Uist is off the western coast of Scotland, northwestern coast. One of the animals that happily lives on this cold and near desolate island is the St. Kilda field mouse, which is thought to have arrived on Viking ships. Due to the lack of predators on Herta, the St. Kilda field mouse grows to twice the size of its cousins on the mainland. 84. Remains have been uncovered on Scotland's Western Isles that shows humans lived there at least 12,000 years ago. It is thought the first arrivals in Scotland were hunter-gatherers who started to make their way north after the last ice age began, retreating around 15,000 years ago. Whoa. 85. Scotland's ancient tribes were one of the few in the world who were able to resist the might of the Roman army. There were a number of Scottish tribes at the time, but the most powerful was the Picts, who were famed for the blue body paint they wore. So ferocious were they that two vast walls were built to contain them. The Antonine Wall and the Hadrian's Wall, both of which have sections that still stand today. 87, I think. A kilt is the traditional Highland dress of Scotland that was originally a plain 16-foot length of cloth that was worn around the waist and over the shoulders. The first records of a coloured tartan date back to 1538, when cloth was dyed with plants and berries. Scots still wear tartan kilts to this day, although only for ceremonial reasons, either for the military, weddings, or celebrations like Burns Night and Highland Games. A knife called a skean and dhu is traditionally worn in the sock, a practice that originated from friends removing concealed weapons and making them visible as a sign of trust. Very true. 89. Scottish modern laws are a mix of British law and Scots law, which is actually based on Roman law. An even older Scottish law system originated in Shetland and Orkney, which have strong ties to Norway. Udal law, which is Shetland and Orkney law, was officially abolished in 1611, but it was cited in some legal cases as recently as the 1990s. 90. As of 2021, there are 128 different whisky distilleries in Scotland, based in the 5 whisky-producing regions of Speyside, Highlands, Lowlands, Islands, plus Islay, and Campbelltown. By law, distilleries that are not located in Scotland cannot call their spirit Scotch. Not that anyone over here would call it Scotch anyway. 91. Whisky is one of the biggest exports in Scotland, and it accounts for nearly 20% of the entire food and drink export market in the UK. Income from the whisky industry is an incredible £140 every second. Scotland is most famous for whisky, but we also have a very healthy gin industry that produces 70% of all the gin in Britain, since the distilling process is pretty much the same for gin and whiskey. 93. In Britain, the biggest consumers of haggis are English, not Scots. McSween, the country's biggest haggis manufacturer, claims that over 60% of the 1,000 tons of haggis they make each year is sent over the border to England. According to the Guinness Book of Records, the biggest ever haggis was made by Halls of Scotland, which is probably one of the most famous haggis producers as well, in 2014. It weighed 1,010 kilograms and was nearly 3 meters in length. For reference, a standard shop-bought haggis weighs around 500 grams, which is about a pound. 95. So going back to Skara Brae and Orkney, I won't make this 95, but just to further expand, the settlement of Skara Brae consists of stone-built houses connected by sheltered passageways that date back to 3200 BCE. It was only discovered in 1850 after a storm blew away the sand that had covered the site for thousands of years, which is probably why it's given the name Modern Pompeii, as that was preserved by an even older settlement than Skara Brae has been uncovered at Cramond near Edinburgh, which has been dated to at least 8500 BC. The site includes stone tools and pits that indicate it may have been used by Scotland's earliest resident hunter-gatherers. It's generally accepted that Kenneth MacAlpin became the first king of Scotland in AD or CE 842, but in fact he was only the ruler of the Scottish mainland north of the River Forth at the time of his coronation at Moot Hill at Scone Palace, which is near Perth. The north and west coast islands of Scotland were under the rule of the Vikings, while the south was ruled by Anglo-Saxons. The first true king of all of Scotland was Donald II in AD CE 889. '97. After the Romans left Scotland, there was a long period of bitter fighting between Scotland and England that culminated in the invasion of Scotland by the English King Edward I. It was this event that brought William Wallace to fame after he raised a Scottish army to push the English back at the Battle of Stirling Bridge in 1297. '98. The clan system in Scotland was established in the 1200s, whereby areas of Scotland were ruled by one family along with their supporters. Usually their family and their kin, but then, yes, supporters. The clan was ruled by a chief who would maintain authority over the area his clan lived in. So, like a very old-fashioned landlord. Each clan was distinguished by the clothes they wore, and this eventually led to the different tartan colours that are still in use today. There are over 3,000 designs in the Scottish Register of Tartans. 99. The most famous royal in Scotland's history was Mary Queen of Scots. After her abdication, she was imprisoned in Loch Leven Castle, which is a fortified building in the middle of Loch Leven in Kinross. The small island that we can see today was much smaller in Mary's time, as the majority of it was covered by water until the loch was partially drained in 1836. And number 100. In 1745, the Jacobites, led by Prince Charles Edward Stuart, took up arms and marched into England in an attempt to reclaim the throne in the Stuart name. They managed to get as far as Derby before turning back, and were later defeated at Culloden in the last pitched battle to be fought on British soil. So that was 100-ish interesting facts about Scotland, and I hope that you liked it, and I kind of hope you're asleep by now, to be honest, although those were very interesting facts. But I hope that you enjoyed the video. When you wake up in the morning, maybe you'll give it a little thumbs up, or maybe you'll click subscribe. But for now, I wish you pleasant dreams. Good night.